This is a quick guide for the Royal Athenaeum in World of Warcraft, which involves killing 3 further bosses in the new Nighthold raid. Please note that all of the points in this guide are from a ranged DPS perspective. The first boss in the second tier of this raid is Spellblade Aluriel. She is a Nightborn mage in the centre of the main courtyard after exiting the sewer area. If you're heroic or mythic raid geared, you'll find this pretty easy on normal. Mark of Frost is the first debuff, and it will be cast on 2 players to begin with. They should move out of the raid, and when they reach around 6 of this debuff, they should transfer it to another player to avoid taking excessive damage. When the boss casts Animate, frost adds called Icy Enchantments will spawn from where the detonate on the marked players went off, and should be pulled to Aluriel to be cleaved down. Like with most fights, you're going to want to focus on these adds first, before returning your attention back to the boss. Searing Brand is the second debuff cast once the boss reaches her fire phase. The first player afflicted with this debuff will need to move out of the raid quickly, as Aluriel will charge towards them. Any player between the boss and the target player will gain the Searing Brand debuff as well, so be sure to avoid it. Detonate will cause fire patches to spawn on the ground where previously branded players were standing, and like during the frost phase, adds will spawn from these patches. These fiery enchantments need to be DPS'd as soon as possible, as they deal raid-wide damage. In Aluriel's third phase, arcane orbs will spawn in the raid. These need to be moved away from as they do pulsing AoE damage. Detonate this time round will cause the orbs to fly up and drop down, dealing a large amount of damage. Simply move away from the purple swirls on the ground to avoid this damage. The arcane enchantments that spawn from Aluriel's Animate need to be zerged down as quickly as possible also. The 3 phases will start over again with Frost, and the changes will continue until you get the boss down. The second boss in this wing is Star Augur Etraeus, a Nightborn Astromancer whose fight takes place in an observatory cum space platform. This fight will still be fairly easy for geared players, but is definitely a step up from the previous bosses. Icy Ejection is the first debuff that will be cast on random players, who will have to move out to the edges of the room to avoid dealing further damage to the raid. Once the debuff expires, it'll deal almost 1,000,000 damage to all players within 8 yards, hence the need to move away. At 60%, the walls of the observatory will seal back up and peel down to indicate the beginning of the Fel phase. Fel Ejection is the debuff to watch out for in this phase. It'll drop pools of Fel Fire on the ground, so players afflicted will need to move to the edge of the room and strafe slowly around to avoid spreading the pools too quickly. Don't worry about disengaging or blinking to the outside of the room, as there's an invisible wall to stop you falling over the edge. Tanks can clean up puddles with Gravitational Pull, which will deal damage if you're near, so stay away from their purple circles. At 30%, the walls will slink back up and pop down again, signifying the final phase. You'll want the raid to stack in on the boss at this point to make things easier for you. Voidlings will spawn constantly throughout this phase, which have fairly low health and can be cleaved down quickly and easily. Things that should not be are the larger adds that will spawn, which will need to be tanked on the edges of the room to avoid the boss gaining a 99% damage reduction. They will cast Witness of the Void, which everyone will need to turn away from as well. If one of your tanks keeps it at the back of the room behind the raid, there will be no need to turn around. When the thing that should not be is up, you can either DPS it down really quick or zerg the boss down like we did here, although as you can see, Etraeus gained the damage reduction buff due to a loose add. The final boss in this set is High Botanist Tel'arn, who starts off as one mob and splits into other forms as the fight goes on. This is the most difficult boss in this group, though gear groups should still find this pretty straightforward. You'll want to split your ranged and healers into 3 points around the circle, which will help avoid damage at several points and make ad management a lot easier. Solar Collapse is the first move you'll need to pay attention to. There will be yellow swirls in a circle spawn around the room and explode the further into the circle they go. Simply move out of the circle, should you be in there, to avoid any damage. Parasitic Fetter will be cast on a random player, which will root them to the ground and spawn 2 Parasitic Lashes once the debuff is removed or expires. These adds are stunnable and slowable, so control them as best you can and kill the lashes down before they reach any players. Controlled Chaos is a big damage move that your raid will need to steer clear of. It works just the same as Felseeker on Manaroth, so hopefully that's still fresh in your minds. Simply run in the opposite direction of the purple circles, which expand twice, to avoid any damage. Phase 2 begins at 75%, and Tel'arn will split into High Botanist and Solarist. Make sure to cleave as much as you can as the health is shared. Plasma Spheres are one of the big reasons for splitting your raid, and hopefully your stack point should be nice and close to these. The spheres work just like the collapsing stars on Augur, so they need to be managed carefully. You need to zerg one sphere down quickly, gain a debuff, then move on to the next. If you kill all 3 too quickly, they'll all explode and deal massive raid damage and apply 3 stacks of the debuff. There's no reason to kill the third ball, as it will die slowly on its own. At 50%, the final split will occur, and Naturalist Tel'arn will appear, enabling arcane powers. Toxic spores will constantly spawn throughout this phase, which will deal 140,000 damage every half second for 12 seconds to players that burst them. It's important to avoid these, and have damage reduction abilities used to clean these up, such as Aspect of the Turtle. Naturalist will cast Grace of Nature every 70 seconds, which spawns a healing pool under the bosses. Tanks will simply need to move the bosses out of this to avoid them healing up. Call of Night is another debuff that will go out every 70 seconds. It'll deal pulsing damage, but can be avoided by having a non-debuff player stand on top of you. Continue on dealing with all of these abilities and cleaving the bosses down. We killed Tel'arn cleanly last night, but I've included the achievement pop from last week's Spore Laden kill as well, for those that need the money shot. If you found this video helpful, feel free to hit the like button, or subscribe if you'd like to keep up with loads more achievement guides coming soon. Thanks for watching.